Wildwood Community Church in Norman.
Thanks, guys. Good morning. So you hear this voice. My students have heard it all week, for 2 weeks, I think. Sound like I'm in puberty. So I brought some things to help me out here. Hope I can get through the... Okay, I'm ready. No, I'm just kidding. But pray for me as I speak, because things could go south, and I could be... But oddly enough, it's my intention today to talk about silence. I'm getting some ringing feedback. Today, it's my intention to... Have you ever been there, by the way? Have you ever been in a desert like that? Have you ever been in your spiritual life? Have you ever been in a place where you didn't feel like that relationship with the Lord wasn't quite there? Right? You're not hearing from the Lord. Things aren't going the way you thought they would go. Right? Maybe you're asking questions. Does he even hear me? Or why doesn't he fill in the blank? I've been asking for something for a long time. Fill in the blank. Is God even there? Right? Is God even there? Well, in our chaotic times, there's a lot of things going on in the world, are there not, that can divert our attention from Christ, right? And make us feel in a deserted place, right? That he's not really there. Why are the bad guys winning? Right? Today, I hope to pass along a little bit of encouragement. And I'm going to use a kind of a weird way to do this. I'm going to use this chess set here. I like to play chess, right? We're going to talk about the difference between God's voice, perhaps, and God's hand. God's voice and God's hand. Well, I'm going to use this chessboard, or that chessboard, as sort of my object lesson today. And we're going to talk about this time. In Malachi 4, 5, and 6, it says, "Behold, I will send you Elijah, the prophet, before the great and awesome day of the Lord comes, and he will turn the hearts of fathers to their children, and the hearts of children to their fathers, lest I come and strike the land with a decree of utter destruction." That was the last time in the Old Testament that God spoke to his people. Through prophets, through preachers, at least that we know of. There's no other recorded speaking of the Lord to anyone. Certainly not through prophets during that time. So that's why this time period between the Old and the New Testament is called the 400 years of silence. Until we find in John 1, for instance, and this is the testimony of John when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, John the Baptist, we're talking about, "Who are you?" And he confessed and did not deny, but confessed, "I'm not the Christ." And they asked him, "Well, what then are you? Are you Elijah?" Thinking about Malachi, right? Thinking about the Malachi prophecy. "I'm going to send you Elijah." "Are you Elijah?" Right? And he said, "I am not." "Are you the prophet?" And he answered, "No." Of course, we know that John the Baptist was the fellow who was putting down the pathway for Jesus to enter the world. But it's been 400 years. 400 years. Now we think about, I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. Right? So apparently they had been keeping their religion, this idea of a Messiah, of this Elijah coming, they have been keeping that alive in their culture, haven't they? Right? Are you the Elijah? Well, let's look behind the scenes of that 400 years of silence. Let's look behind the scenes. What is God doing? Think about your life right now even if you're not in a desert place, right? Think about your life right now. Look back and say, this important event happened. God orchestrated this to happen in my life, right? God orchestrated several things to happen in my life to put me where I am right now. And maybe this is exactly where he wants me, right? The first move of God's hand was in this 400-year period. It's called the Persian period, when the Persians were in control of the land. And we know about the story of Cyrus the Great. The first move, right? The first move of God's hand here in this 400 years. Well, we know that Satan, of course, is going to be on this side. I was going to ask someone to be Satan. Dr. McCurry? No, I'm just kidding. So I was, of course, Satan is going to be making moves as well, right? He's going to be trying to dislodge God's plan, right? Well, during this time, Cyrus the Great was very favorable to the Jewish nation, right? He began to bring them back from their diaspora or spreading it to other nations. And he allowed the Jewish people to have their religious practices and so on. He even built the second temple, funding it. He funded the second building of the second temple. He allowed synagogues to be established in all of these places where the Jews had been spread out during the diaspora. He allowed Jewish synagogue churches, Jewish synagogues to be established. Right? He was very favorable to this. So that's the first move we see in this 400-year period. Well, maybe in your life, God has allowed a restoration for you too. But you just have to look for it. Look around you. You got friends, everybody's sitting with friends, teams, right? Everybody's sitting with someone they like. They're a group of good buddies and girlfriends and so on, right? You have a community as well. You may probably, I hope most of you, have a church family, right? Where you certainly have a family to have fun with or play softball with, or that was my deal, right? God used me to use softball for me to keep me in church in Dallas, right? I loved playing softball, right? And so, but in order to do that, play church softball, I had to go to church, right? So there was a rule that you had to at least attend 2 Sundays a month, and they kept roll and all that stuff. Oh yeah, so God has things worked out for you as well. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and fellowship, and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer, people eating together, praying together. Look around you. Go to the cafeteria. When you go to the cafeteria for lunch, look around you. There's people eating, praying, laughing, right, having a great time. Maybe you're at Randall for a reason, right? Well, maybe move number 2. Move number 2 was the introduction of the Greeks. Alexander the Great. Alexander the Great conquered the Persians, right? Conquered the Persians. And why did God do that? Why did God allow that? Well, he brought the Greek language to almost to the entire world, right? He brought the Greek language, a common language for everybody to speak, a common language for merchants to use with people coming from different countries, right? Well, that's going to help a lot of things. That's going to be nice. That's going to be, everybody can talk to each other. That's awesome, right? So God is orchestrating spread of the Greek language, and of course, there are great advances in philosophy. We talked about it in my classes. Talked about it yesterday, about Democritus, 2,500 years ago, talking about the atom, right? So a lot of wonderful science and philosophy came out of the Greek culture. So God is moving. God's hand is working. And he also, during this time after Alexander the Great, when he died, there was an Egyptian influx, an Egyptian conquest. Well, what's the big deal of that? Well, it turns out, notice that the Old Testament was translated into Greek. It became the Septuagint. right? They called it the Septuagint because there were 70 or 72 translators, right? And so that Septuagint means 70, right? So God is doing, God is working, God's hand is moving, right? He's brought people together. He's allowed practice of their religion. He's made sure they're practicing remembering Him, remembering that there's someone supposed to come. He's given them a way to speak, given them a common language to write down the scriptures, right? God's hand is moving. No voice that we know of, no voice, but God's hand is moving. So He has also written this thing we call the Bible, right? He's also given you scriptures. He's also given you a guidebook, an owner's manual for you to read. It's not just to sit on your coffee table. It's not just something to bring to Bible study. It's not just something to bring to chapel. It's something for you to sit alone and open it, see what God has to say. Right? So, in His Word, through all the things He's done through those 66 books. Everyone then, Matthew tells us, everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. So apparently we're supposed to read this thing, right? We're supposed to listen. Right? God's hand was moving for a reason. Oh, okay. But we know, of course, Satan is also making moves, right? He's also making moves. He's also doing counter punches, right? Plans that don't coincide with what God wants to do in the world. And we just sang a song that nothing's going to stop God. Satan is sure going to try, isn't he? Well, there's another move of God's hand through this 400 years. A guy named Antiochus the Great and his son Antiochus Epiphanes. Wonderful guys. Not. Persecuted the Jews, desecrated the temple, resulted in a revolt of the Jews. But here we have the rise of sectarian sections, right, between the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Essenes and the Zealots. We have Jews being fragmented, right? Chaotic. There's chaos starting to bubble up even within the Jewish world, right? So God is making another move. Oops. Another move. Well, of course, Satan is going to have his time. He's going to do his thing. He's going to promote this chaos, right? He's going to promote this chaos. So he's going to be putting up his attacks as well. Of course, we know the gates of hell shall not prevail, right? But God, that doesn't mean Satan is not working in this world. He's not trying to turn you away. He's not trying to keep you on a phone looking at Facebook reels all day, right? No, of course not. Anything to distract you away from that book right there. Anything to distract you away from listening to God's word, even whether it's spoken or sung, right? And by the way, would you give the worship band a hand? Those guys are awesome. Awesome. Putting together a program, practicing for you guys to be able to worship, stand up and worship and sing God's praises. Really appreciate them. All right. So God's hand is still working in these 400 years. Still no voice. Apparently, still no voice. But we have several things that God is doing, do we not? So God's hand will guide you through as well. Right? Trials will come. Really? Like daily? Dr. Kemp has an exam on Friday. Makes you study. right? Mr. Byers has a paper due on Thursday, 1,400 pages. They haven't started yet, right? Of course, I would never do that, but I hear people do that, right? My wife always talks about her all-nighters, and I was witness to many of those in her architecture school, trying to finish projects on time, right? That's a pretty good trial. So things are going to come up, and God has given you a way to deal with it through prayer, through reading His Word, through Randall University, just hanging out with your buddies, girlfriends, studying the Bible together, laughing. God has given you a way. The 23rd Psalm, of course, says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, ooh, that's ominous. Some of us, some of you, are going through a really deep valley right now, right? A really deep valley. My hope today is that this gives you just a little hope. My prayer today is it gives you just a little hope to take out of this place, out of this auditorium, to understand that God loves you and He wants to help, right? And it says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. I'm not going to fear this move that Satan is about to make. Or maybe he's already made it, right? Maybe I'm already in the desert, right? Maybe he's already made it. And you're struggling with depression or anxiety or any number of things, right? Maybe it's a relationship. Maybe it's a job issue, right? Stick with Him. He will stick with you for sure. Know that God is with you, just like He's with the Jewish people over 400 years. And finally, the Roman period. Now we're getting up to 63 BC, which is getting close. Watch out. Now God has moved the Romans into power. And now God has moved the Romans into control of the known world, as it were. Well, that's a big deal. Because I'm sure you know, the Romans brought with them a lot of smarts. A lot of smarts. Like they developed laws and taxes and governance. They put structure to the society, right? They had all kinds of, they were oppressive. In many cases, they were mean, just outright mean. But they also had structure and brought that structure to the Jewish people who were beginning to fragment, right? So just at the right time, go figure. The Romans come into control and they build the roads. And they connect the entire empire with 50,000 miles of Roman roads. That's a big deal. Nice paved road, well, not paved in our sense, cobbled roads that you can travel faster on, you can walk faster on. It's easier to get around from place to place. Not only that, the Roman garrisons guarded the roads. Roman garrisons guarded the roads and prevented robberies and burglaries and nasty things happening on the road. Right? So now you got a way for the gospel to spread. And we have a common language. We have protection of the Roman Empire along those 50,000 miles of roads, kind of stable, right, for the spread of the gospel. Well, now comes the final move. The stage is set. Right? The stage is set. Ooh. Checkmate. Checkmate. 400 years of silence are about to be shattered by a baby's cry. And who is that baby, of course? Jesus Christ. Coming into the world, the stage is set. He's going to teach his disciples. common language. It can travel down the roads. It can move faster down the roads. Right? The stage is set. God's hand has done this same thing for you and for me. Many times. I can look back and see, I was supposed to go to pharmacy school. Sure, in my mind, I was supposed to go to pharmacy school. Well, first of all, you know what my grade point average my first year of college was? 2.6. Which my mother, being an all honor student, was not very thrilled about. But God paved a way. I said, well, there's no way. I'm just going to work. There's no way I can go to graduate school or anything like that. God paved a way. Sure enough, I was able to improve my grades a little bit and go to graduate school of all things. Right? It's just amazing to me how God has loved me like he loves you. He's preparing you for great things too. Whatever that is. It may be something completely different from what you're studying right now. I had no idea I would be a forensic scientist. Not even on the radar. But he put in my path people who were and showed me, here's where I want you to go. I want you to go to graduate school at LSU, and I want to, when you're finished there, I want your predecessor to call you in Oklahoma City and say, hey, Phil, would you be interested in coming to be chief toxicologist at the medical examiner's office? And I said, sure. I figured I'd end up in Montana or Wyoming or somewhere distant, and I ended up being 3 hours away from my parents and grandparents, and right? God's doing the same thing for you. Don't ever forget that. He's doing exactly that. It may not seem like it day to day. You're going through your day routines. You're talking to the same people. Everything is routine. Not even thinking about it. But God's moving the chess pieces. He's moving your chess pieces to make an impact on your life. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Isaiah the prophet told us. Fear not, for I am with you. And of course, in Matthew, and behold, I am with you always, Jesus says. Always. How long is always? Always. Right? To the end of the age. Thank you. May God bless you.
Thank you, Dr. Kemp. A couple quick things. We have a women's basketball game tonight at 5. Make sure you come support them. And then the Drama Club's production is also tonight at 7 o'clock. That'll be in here. Please come support them as well. Beloved of God,